Pāti Māori, a tribe of what you could only describe, well, they're not a tribe, they're a gathering, a conglomeration. What are they? They're a smattering, they're a scattering. They are I'd like to call them a group, but that probably gives them too much coherence. They, anyhow, decided to engage in their most recent outburst of amateur theatrics. Listen, the problem I've got with Te Pāti Māori is not that they say what they say or that they do what they do. It's just that it's like watching a fifth form drama class, Josh. You know? It's like, oh, I've just decided to overact. No. There's no subtlety. There's no yin and yang. There's no shade and character that comes with their performances. It's just like screaming. It's like I've given a whole bunch of kids from the fifth form, most of whom have ADHD, and I've given them a script for the first time, and they're on stage, and they're all quite enjoying about being on stage. You know, it's a combination of that. And that's what I watch when I watch Te Pāti Māori. And again, it's amateur, and I mean really amateur theatrics of yesterday in Parliament. Even to the point that their leader, Rauiwi Waititi, or the co-leader, Rauiwi Waititi, brings a noose. Brings a noose into Parliament. A noose. A hanging noose, Josh, into Parliament to try and say that what is happening in Parliament today is equivalent to, well, I guess the KKK hunting down blacks in deepest, darkest southern United States of America, somewhere like Mississippi in the 1920s. You know, it's sort of like they can't even get the country right, for God's sake.
Yeah,
this is the problem, let alone the theatrics.
Hey, but at least the treaty's postponed for 28 days.
The other thing that is true of, it has to be said, yesterday was this, and extraordinary as it was, is that apart from the bad amateur theatrics and the misplacing of historical relics, they are thick. No. I've said this to you before, but it needs to be said again. These people are dumb. They are unintelligent, uneducated. They know what the English language is, and they've decided that to try and demonstrate that they're not thick and that they're not unintelligent, they've gone and found a whole series of words, and the longer the better in the English language. It's like they must have researchers in Te Pāti Māori that say, well, let's go to the Oxford English Dictionary today and we'll try and find the most polysyllabic words that we can. And then they use them in the speeches out of context and not knowing what they mean. And so you end up, if you listen to a speech from any Te Pāti Māori, and it doesn't matter even whether it's a press conference, a speech in Parliament, you know, out on the lawns, you know, with your taiaha, waving it at a whole series of, well, frankly, similarly not too bright people, you've got this word salad going on, which means nothing, but has a whole series of Māori and English concepts and idioms all joined together and clearly opposing each other in the same sentence, but they give it with such passion and such fifth form amateur dramatics fervour that it means something to them. You know, if you just listen to one of the speeches, just take one sentence of Rawiri Waititi, Debbie Narawa Paka, any Te Pāti Māori luminary, you soon work out, oh my God, you know, it's not like English is the second language for you. You really don't understand what it means, do you? When they add the Maori concepts like Maori into it, you know, we'll just decide to abuse that, or, you know, it doesn't matter whatever Maori concept they might introduce into any of their conversations or their sentences. It's like a small little bomb goes off, a little logic bomb. once was a very good friend of former Prime Minister, Labour Prime Minister Mike Moore. He used to come around to my house every Friday and have breakfast with me. I used to cook a breakfast, and he used to bring what he could, but it was mostly considered was a packet of cigarettes, and plough through them, and a sort of and he never got to the end of a cigarette, did Mike? He never got there. He got about a third of the way through and then just abandoned it. Well, he had a speaking style that was very similar, Mike Moore. He was consumed by ideas, which is nothing that I could suggest to Pāti Māori, but he was consumed by ideas, and a third, maybe halfway through a sentence, when you're in conversation with the former Labour leader and the former Prime Minister Mike Moore, he would abandon that conversation and plunge into the new one. And you're sort of left going, and so it was really an expedition. If you sat down opposite Mike Moore, very entertaining guest, he and Winston Peters got on like a house on fire, of course they did, particularly if they had a bottle of whiskey between them and a packet of cigarettes. It was like going on an expedition. That's how I feel with Rawiri Waititi and Debbie Narewa Packer. I'm going on an expedition because, I'm trying, but the difference with Mike Moore was he would head off down one direction and then he'd head off down another side street and another side street and another side street. It was a continual process. But with the Te Pāti Māori, you keep on coming back through the same circular argument and the same set of words to the same basic concept, and it is all white people are bastards. That's it, and it always circles back to that basic theorem that they've got. All white people are bastards. Now, I don't mind them saying that to the House yesterday. They have been suspended from it. It's ironic because they spend so little time in the House. I would have thought that 21 days not being in the House now gives you a legitimate reason not to be there, given all the other illegitimate reasons that you used in the previous. But I guess the fact that's what's really hurting them is they're not getting paid. And then the worst part is they're not getting paid by a white settler colonial government. You know, the one they despise, the one they hate, the one that's full of white people, or worse, people like Winston Peters, who are, according to Rawiri Waititi, inversely racist and inversely discriminatory. I think what he was really suggesting is that Winston Peters is essentially, and that's what he said yesterday, the Uncle Tom of the New Zealand Maori movement, people, ethnicity, culture. Along with a whole series of other Uncle Toms, apparently, who sit in the ACT, New Zealand First, National, and even in the Labour benches. The other thing that I enjoyed greatly yesterday was watching the other person who finds logic a struggle, Willie Jackson, say that what he saw from Te Pāti Māori in his speech, which just, when Willie starts a speech, it's not that you don't know the destination. It's just that you don't know which hole he's going to dig and how deep it's going to be. But Willie Jackson went there yesterday in his speech in defence of Te Pāti Māori and his opposition of the stand-down suspension that was confirmed by Parliament yesterday. He said this, you'll be amused. It was the greatest display of Māori culture he'd ever seen in his life. Okay, that's how he described the haka of the three Māori, Te Pāti Māori MPs as they advanced towards the ACT Party benches, but David Seymour in specific, in their gesture of intimidatory behaviour. All right, it was the greatest example he'd ever seen of Māori culture in the House, and he was proud to have seen it. All right, that's the first thing he said. Second, yes, of course it was intimidatory. It was meant to be intimidatory. The haka isn't used in that context a peaceful purpose. It's not a welcoming song. It's not a siren welcome into Māori culture. It is a defiant act of intimidation, opposition and aggression. So, well, Willie Jackson described it as such. And then, having said that, he then moved to the third bit, So I think you guys should apologise. I mean, it was surreal. Greatest example of Maori culture in my life I've ever seen. So proud to have witnessed it and been a part of it. 2, it was meant to be aggressive and intimidatory. Of course it was. That's why we have haka in those sorts of contexts. 3, you guys should apologise for it. It was amazing. But that was Willie Jackson. And there, in one, is the problem of the Labour Party. The problem of the Labour Party, and sorry guys, you've got it. It's the albatross around your neck, isn't it? It's Te Pāti Māori. You've got to convince ordinary middle New Zealanders, most of whom support the 3-week suspension, according to the most recent poll from Radio New Zealand, most of whom support, in fact, many believe it's too lenient, of the suspension of the Te Pāti Māori MPs. You've got to convince middle New Zealand and that group of people who you need to get over the line to become the government at the next election. You've got to convince them at Te Pāti Māori. You've got to convince them you can do it with them. We all know, can I just say to Chris Hipkins, they're crazy. We all know they're not very bright. We all know they're sort of amateur theatrics, but they could, in actual fact, radicalise young Māori in particular to do something really stupid. I mean, that's the sort of stupid people they are, and the violent rhetoric and aggressive tactics, etc. You're waiting, you're just waiting for intimidation to turn into action. I mean, after all, got the mongrel mob, got the black power there, been around for generations. There's a sort of a precedent just quietly when it comes to violence. Anyhow, point is, you're going to have to convince Chris Hipkins that the mob, that the intimidatory, aggressive, eye-rolling, haka-spewing, mad people of Te Pāti Māori, you can go into a coalition with them and work with them, and they'll be in the best interests of New Zealand. All I can say, Chris Hipkins, is you've got your work cut out. Because we see these people, ordinary New Zealanders, Labour voting New Zealanders, those who are trade unionists, who might be inspired by Labour Party policy, and they still look to their left and go, oh my God. It was bad enough for the Greens. The Greens are fruity. The Greens are fruit central, can I say. But at least you can deal with fruit central. I mean, at the end of the day, the Greens, push come to shove, still understand process. But Te Pāti Māori, they don't understand anything. They're dumb, and dumb people do dumb stuff. Now, they've done a lot of dumb stuff, and yesterday they were published for it. But they'll go out there with their noose and their KKK rhetoric and their argument that all white people are bastards, and they'll run through Māoridom for the next 18 months leading into the election. The problem with that, Chris, is that you're white. Yeah, you're part of the white colonial settler past. Your ancestors came here, didn't have a touch of ethnicity in them that was indigenous, I'm afraid. Well, it was the indigeneity, I guess, of the Celts and the Scots and the Picts and the Romans and all those sorts of things. But the point is, you're part of their continuum. Good luck on dealing with them, Chris. They're not ours to deal with. We know they're mad. We know they're aggressive. We know they're bad. We know they're sad. Your problem, mate. Those are my thoughts this morning. What are yours?